Welcome dear students. I am Richa Shakya, Assistant Professor in Noida Institute of Engineering Technology, Pharmacy Institute, Greater Noida. Today I am here to deliver the lecture on the topic from the subject that is Human Anatomy and Physiology-II, and the subject code is BP201T, and this subject comes into the B Pharma, and this course comes under the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University. So today's topic is the introduction of the sex hormones. Previously we studied about the structure and the functions of the male and the female reproductive organs. Now we study about the sex hormones. These sex hormones plays the important role during the reproductive system or the reproductive process. Now we start with the introduction process. So basically the sexual hormone or the sex hormones are basically of two types, and these are the proteins and the steroids. So sex hormones, what is the hormones? Hormones are the chemical messengers. Basically the hormones are the chemical messengers which convey the messages from the one source to the another. Okay, so these hormones are of two types, that is the proteins and the steroids. The steroids have a molecular weight about 300 daltons, which presenting thus a small size because of their size and liposolubility. Liposolubility means, lipo means fat, right? So it is soluble in fat. These steroids are soluble in fat and they can easily diffuse through the target cell, having the consequences intracellular receptors. So basically these steroids, they have the molecular weight about 300 daltons and they are easily soluble with the fat, right? These are the liposolubility, means that these are soluble in fat. Now while the protein hormone, the weight of the proteins is more than the 300 dalton, and therefore it cannot penetrate the cells. They need a membrane receptors, so they can directly mix, or they can directly soluble, or they can directly attach to their target receptors, but the proteins will not directly attach to the target receptors. They needs to their binding proteins, so they need some membrane receptor. There are some membrane receptors. With these membrane receptors, they bind with these membrane receptors and they then goes to the targeting sites. The steroids can circulate into the bloodstream only if to non-specific proteins like albumin, or to the specific proteins like SBHC. What is SBHC? It is a sex hormone binding globulins. So basically the hormones, it is circulated into the bloodstream. On the other hand, the protein hormones are hydrosoluble and circulate freely in a blood. Now, so start with the protein hormones. So the protein hormones, there are some types of various types of protein hormones. So the first is the gonadotropin. So these hormones are produced by different tissues, that's like pituitary and the placenta, and these gonadotropins hormones released from the pituitary, from the anterior side of the pituitary, right? These gonadotropin hormones released from the anterior side of the pituitary gland, and their main function is to gonadic regulation What is gonadic regulation? It is occurs into the ovaries and testes. Gonadic regulation means regulation of the gonadic hormones. Now, gonadotropic include, these hormones include the various kinds of hormones, that is a FSH, LH and HCG. The full form of FSH is follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and last one is the hormone chronic gonadotropins. Now, start with the FSH, that is the follicle stimulating hormone. So this is the glycoproteins, because it is a part of the protein hormones. So it is a glycoprotein produced by the pituitary gland, again from the anterior part of pituitary gland, right. Morphologically, it is heterodimer composed by two different subunits, that is a unit A and a unit B. These subunits have the 89 amino acids, which is common to all gonadotropins, and also the TSH. What is TSH? That is a thyrotropic hormones. So these B subunits have the 118 amino acids, and it is specific for the FSH, right. So means the subunit A have 89 amino acids, and the subunit B have the 118 amino acids, which is only specific for the follicle stimulating hormone. The main function of the FSH is to promote and sustain the ovarian follicle to growth in the women and the spermatogenesis in the men. Now, FSH stimulate the synthesis of its own receptor on the granulosa and Sertoli cells, and the LH, that is luteinizing hormone receptors on the granulosa cells. It stimulates the aromatase activity inside the granulosa cell, which help the enzyme converting the androgen into the estrogens. So this activity perform here. So thus the follicle stimulating hormone is responsible for the choice of dominating follicle. So now next thing, the FHS, that is a follicle stimulating hormone synthesis and secretion by the hypophysis, and is controlled by different regulators like GnRH, that is a gonadotropin releasing hormone, right. There is a various hormones which help in the secretion and synthesis of the FSH. So there is a gonadotropin releasing hormone of the hypothalamic origin, ovarian estrogen, activin and inhibin, both gonadotropin origin. Now next one is this is about the FSH. Now next one is the luteinizing hormone, that is the LH. So LH, again it is a kind of the protein hormone. So it is a glycoprotein and produced by the hypophysis like FSH. LH is also present as a heterodimer with the two different subunits, that is a subunit A and the subunit B. The principal function of the LHR is to promoting the androgen synthesis in the thecal cells of the ovaries and the interstitial cells of the testes. Next function of the LH hormone is inducing ovulation by the stimulating of the cascade of the proteolytic enzyme, leading to the rupture of the basement membrane of the follicle, right? So this is a function, this is the next function, that is inducing the ovulation process. What is the ovulation process? Ovulation means when the egg will mature and it will comes from the ovary side. Now next one is the maintaining the corpus luteum during the menstrual cycle. LH synthesis and secretion from the hypophysis is controlled by the different regulators, that is a GnRH. It is also controlled, this GnRH, that is the gonadotropin releasing hormone, is also control the release and the synthesis of the FSH. So this and GnRH is also control the synthesis and release of the LH and the ovarian estrogen and the progesterone hormones. Now next one is a HCG, that is a human chorionic gonadotropin, right? So this HCG is glycoprotein and produced by the syncytotrophoblast, right? Syncytotrophoblast. It is again heterodimer. It is composed by the two subunits, that is the A and the B. As the LH and FS, they both are the heterodimers. So this HCG is also the heterodimer and it is also a two subunits, that is a subunit A or the subunit B. A particular form, the HCG called the NIGD. The HCG immunological recognition of NIGD forms the especially important when the HCG is measured to determine the risk of the mother to carry the trisomy 21 as this chromosomal pathology, right? Now the function of the HCG is essential to maintain the corpus luteum during the pregnancy and it progesterone secretion, right? But it is also, there is an anti-gonadotropic effect, that it inhibits the secretion of LH and FSH, right? So this gonadotropin means it is also inhibit the releasing of the LH and FSH hormones. This is the inhibitory effect of the HCG hormones. This HCG is said to be steroidogenic, but we study in the proteins hormones, but it is also known as a steroidogenic hormone, not only because it favors the secretion of the progesterone by the corpus luteum, but it's also because it stimulates the steroid secretion of the fetal gonads, right? Now the regulation of the HCG synthesis and its secretion is provide a trophoblastic GnRH, that is gonadotropin releasing hormones. Now next one is a prolactin hormone. So prolactin hormone, it is a human prolactin. It is non-glycosylated protein. It is structurally similar to the HPL, that is a human placental lactogen, and to growth hormones, right? Then the prolactin essential to the pituitary origin, but the stromatal cells of the endometrium produce the prolactin during the secretory phase, as this hormone considered as the maker of the destabilization. Destabilization means there is a involving in the further more processes, right? The principal biological function of the prolactin is in the woman is to control breast development and the lactation. If the progesterone is the main regulator of the endometrial prolactin, then the pituitary prolactin is essential controlled by the dopamine, which is also known as a PIF. What is PIF? It is a prolactin inhibiting factor. However, this thyroid releasing hormone and vasoactive intestinal peptides are capable of stimulating the release of the pituitary or the prolactins. So, this is the main functions of the prolactin and the other hormones. Now, this is about the protein hormones. Now, we study about the steroid hormones. So, again steroid hormones have some specific. So, first is the estrogens. So, these estrogens are of the three types: estrogen E, estrogen, it is called as E1, estradiol, that is called as E2, and estriol, that is known as E3. So, these are the major hormones right. Now, at equal concentration of E2, E2 is a estradiol, has a stronger biological effect than E1, that is a ostrion, which is more powerful than E3, that is a oestrol. So, E2 has a stronger biological effect than E1, which is more powerful than the E3, and the enzymatic conversion of the estrogen occurs in the liver. The estrogen are excreted in the urine as the glucuronides or sulfates. It is releasing from the urine. So, during the condition of the pregnancy or something else testing, there is a testing of the estrogen or the progesterone levels, right. Now, estrone or a E1. So, this in the women of the reproductive age, the E1 is mainly produced from the enzymatic conversion of the androstenedione, which is secreted under the influence of LH, that is luteinizing hormone, and by the thecal cells, and the aromatase activities depends on the FSH, right. So, this E1 release with the help of the LH and the FSH activities. In the menopausal, means in the condition of the menopause. What is menopause? And the condition where the menstruation process will stop, right. So, in the menopause women and in the men, E1 and its sulfates represents the main circulating estrogen. The biological function of E1 is to regulate the effect that converts the estrogen into the estradiol, has the degree of the estrogenization, right. Now, estradiol in the women of reproductive egg cell, it is essential to produce the enzymatic activity of the endomorph cells, and this androgens are produced by the thecal cells under influence of LH, conversions of E2. Again, it is a granulosa cell of the follicle through the enzymatic activities or aromatase activity, and this aromatase activity depends on the FSH level. The level of FSH release, so it depends on the activity of the aromatase activity of the estradiol, right. Then thus the hormonal secretion of the E2 is depends on the two pituitary gonadotropins. Now, in the post-menopausal, the women have low level of E2 is provided by the peripheral, that is the liver, fat, muscular tissues, the conversion, the aromatization of the androgen secretion by the adrenal glands, right. The principal function, what is the principal, what is the main function? The principal function of the E2 in the woman is to mitotic effect of the uterine mucosa and on the breast, and the feedback, that is a positive or a negative feedback on the pituitary gonadotropin and its role in the bone mineralization. estradiol E3. So in women reproductive age, the very low concentration of the E3 and produced by the hepatic hydroxylation of the E1 and E2 during the pregnancy condition. This E3 produced in the large quantity from the fetal placenta unit, as 17 hydroxylase is lacking in the placenta and 3B hydroxy dehydrogenase is absent in the fetus. The E3 production is depend on the feto placental collaboration. This mechanism follows the placental pregnenolone and the precursor of it is a precursor of the progesterone, and it reduces the dehydroepiandrosterone sulfate. Okay, this is a DHEase in the fetal adrenal glands. Then DHEase. So DHEase is a dehydroepiandrosterone sulfate returns to the placenta, where it is transferred into the androsterone and into the E3, and this E3 concentration strongly increased during the pregnancy, and it reflecting thus the effect of the fetoplacental corporation. Right. Now the progesterone. So in non-pregnant ladies or the non-pregnant women of the reproductive age, P4, that is the progesterone, is essential for the ovarian origin. In the middle of the menstruation cycle, the LH peak with the induced biochemical and phenotypical changes of the granulosa called as the process of luteinization. Right. So this progesterone help into the process of the luteinization. This process makes the granulosa cells capable to produce the progesterone. Thus the progesterone, which becomes detectable from the mid cycle onwards. This is essential for the corpus luteum, and the beginning of the pregnancy, that is the less than a 2 week, sorry, the more than a 2 week, the progesterone is also produced by the corpus luteum. After the 12 to 14 weeks, the pregnancy synthesis and the production of the P4 exclusively on the placenta origin, and the biological role of the P4 or the progesterone is to transform the uterine vesicles, also stimulate the E2 in the secretory mucosa, which can be received the fertilized ovum. On the other hand, the progesterone inhibit the uterine contractions. The progesterone synthesized in the corpus luteum is stimulated by the LH and the HCG stimulation. The level of LH and the HCG is present, so the progesterone will synthesize into the corpus luteum. Now the testosterone. So this is the hormone. So in the women of the reproductive age, the testosterone is produced by the thecal cells which surround the follicles, and the androgen testosterone serve as a substrate synthesis of the estradiol, that is a E2, but it is also detected in the circulation even in the very low concentration. In men testosterone, it is produced by the Leydig cells. Okay, the testosterone, this testosterone hormones is also in the male and the female. So in the male, it is by the Leydig cells. The biological role of the testosterone in the woman is to favor the follicle asteria, and in the male, this testosterone provide the appearance of the secondary sex characteristics, that is a voice, velocity, and control the gonadotropic secretions. So when the testosterone hormones secrete, so when the male reaches to his puberty conditions, so at that time the voice change of the male, right. So this is all about the hormones which plays the important role during the reproductive system, right. So there are some protein hormones, there are some steroid hormones, and both are plays the important role in the during the reproductive system. Thank you.